Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everybody to Tiger Claw Radio. This is your host, Critical Failure. It's been a huge week for music releases. We've got a new one from Chiptunes Equals Win. They have a Western themed compilation out, and we've also got a new one from Battle of the Bits. That's right, Battle of the Bits has another compilation. That's 3 in 3 weeks. As for video games, the Master Chief Collection is coming to Steam. But is it too late for Master Chief? We're going to kick things off with a track called Horse Slinger. It's from Cactus. This appears on A Fistful of Chiptunes, which is available now from Chiptunes Equals Win. Hey, the zip file's free, but if you want to get the cassette tape, you're gonna have to go over to Bandcamp and pre-order it. Stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That's a really good track. You know, that reminds me of, what is it now? This is the group Victim Cash. That's what it is. That's not Who Does This. This is Cactus, but it reminds me of Victim Cash, which was a Game Boy and guitar player combo, 2 people. And I ended up getting a 45 from them off of Bandcamp. Very good stuff. All right, let's go back to the van. So this was recorded on Tuesday morning, and it's video games are the best medicine. Find out why. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday morning. It is a wet Tuesday morning out at 39 degrees. And it is foggy and dark. And I'm off to work. Give me a second here. I'm pulling out of the driveway. I actually get to park in the driveway right now, which is pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. All right. I think we're safe. And away we go. 6:14 in the morning. Made it out in good time today. Returning to the office after a couple of days off on medical leave. Feels good, man. Feels good. I got 4 days at home in my office. No kid duty. Just me sitting on my little couch working on getting better. And once I was well enough to sit at my desk, I had some game time, man. It was kind of like the game time I'm always thinking about. I was like, man, I wish I could just throw everything aside and just go play games for a while. Well, it really happened. It happened for 4 days, which is pretty sweet. During those 4 days, Steam had this sort of weird hiccup where it wasn't recording my game time, which is very frustrating. All the achievements were unlocking, but game time wasn't going down in the books. Very strange. So I played a game called Territory Idle, which Alex Swingle showed me. Very simple, like a clicker game, which I wasn't really familiar with the concept of a clicker game. I'd played games like this before, but I always play them I always think of that sort of thing as like a mobile game. But it was a clicker game that was free on Steam, and it had super rudimentary graphics. Something you'd more think of as like I don't know, like maybe an MS-DOS game, or I equate it to like a TI-83 calculator game. But you click the box, and it makes the wheat feel, and then you wait, and then wheat's generated, and then you click another box, and that wheat is used for other things, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that was simple and fun. I played that a little bit. Actually, I played that a lot. I played that probably more than I should have, because I was hurting because I was recovering from surgery. So I didn't want to play something too involved, right? And I could just kind of chill back in my chair and play that with one hand on the mouse and be kind of glazed over. And I showed it to my son, and he got into it as well. And the way my son describes it, he says it's the king of all chill-out games, which I think is fair. So Territory Idle was a good game. Some of the other games I played was, when I started to feel better, was Sniper Elite, the original Sniper Elite. I pushed that further. I played that for, I don't know, a few hours, probably like 2 or 3 hours, and none of that time got logged, which was super frustrating. Super duper frustrating. I also played Zombie Army Trilogy for probably like 3 hours. Again, none of that time got logged. All right, hang on a second. All right, there we go. So, Sniper Elite. Let's see, Sniper Elite, and what was it? Zombie Army Trilogy. Man, that was a good game. I really enjoyed that a lot. I got to this crazy boss battle with this like big ghost zombie, and he's got floating skulls swirling around him, and you gotta shoot the floating skulls
And once you shoot the floating skulls, then he becomes like flesh, and then you can shoot the boss and deal damage. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it. The only problems I'm running into with Zombie Army Trilogy is it was designed to be a multiplayer horde game. So you play it in single player, and the odds are going to be stacked against you. So that's one thing. People have been complaining about the difficulty if you read the boards, but I seem to have been having fun with it. But the real problem was that it did that thing where my system couldn't really handle the power draw that my graphics card would use when it was open. So every time I would get into like a wide enough space, you'd hear the surge protector power surging. So I eventually had to dumb the graphics down, which sucked. It sucked because it's a good-looking game. It's a good-looking game which runs very well, right? Most of the time it's either like doesn't look great, but it runs good, or looks great but doesn't run well. This game like hit the balance perfectly. I was able to play it for several hours, looking great and running great, and I was like, man, this is probably the best looking game I've played in a while. But then the power surging started, and that sucked. Ooh. There we go. Man, it is foggy out. So that was Zombie Army Trilogy. It's still a good game. I enjoy it, even though I had to dumb the graphics down a little bit. But there's been some good boss fights and some good zombie shooting in that game. Let's see. I got a track out into a competition, which was great. Over on Battle of the Bits, they had a couple of competitions going at once. There was the dungeon. I can't remember what they called it, but it was like the dungeon music type competition. And then there was also the Cheese Dance Junior competition. And that's, think more like 1990s techno with cheesy voice samples and all that kind of stuff. That was what I submitted to. I opened up LMMS and I put something together, and I was really proud of that. So that's the second time I've managed to get a track out to Battle of the Bits. Let's see what else is going on. I picked up the old Game Boy, my old Game Boy Color from way back in the day. That was something I occasionally think about doing. I finally made it happen. Well, let me back up a step. I came across some footage of an unboxing that I filmed that I never released. It was a day where I bought like a bunch of import games. I spent $14 on cheap import games. I got a big stack of like Game Boy and Famicom games, mostly pachinko. This was like when I was getting hard into pachinko last year. But I didn't scrub the set carefully enough, so there's like personally identifiable information visible in the video, so I wasn't able to release it. But I saw all the stuff that I bought, and I was like, oh, okay. I bought a bunch of like pachinko games for the original Game Boy that didn't get played. So all right, so I fired up the original Game Boy and dug them out. And sure enough, there was plenty of pachinko, but there was also like not just pachinko, but like an old-fashioned slot machine game for the Game Boy. I don't know. So one of the imports, I thought it was pachinko when I ordered it. But it turns out just to be the straight, like, one-armed bandit kind of game. So that's actually what I've been playing. I have that stuck into the Game Boy. And I tested it initially for just, like, a couple of minutes and shut it off and put it back on the shelf. But I've noticed myself, like, in the middle of the day, I'll stop and just pull the Game Boy down and be like, all right, let's pull the lever on the slot machine a few times and then move on with my day. So that was a game, like, when I first put it in, I was like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But then it actually turned out to be okay. All right, now you're gonna have to give me a second because it's super foggy out and I'm on a twisty road, so I'm gonna pause this for a second here. So it was cool to have some game time, and it was cool it's cool that I'm feeling better after my surgery. And now I'm on my way back to the office. Here's one for you that I really liked. Last night, my son and I played Jamestown. Jamestown was on my mind because I used it as a guinea pig to try this new sort of local area multiplayer streaming that Steam is doing. So Sean and I tried to play Jamestown like a couple weeks ago, and it didn't work. We couldn't make it work. So last night, my son and I just did it the old-fashioned way. He was using my my Hori fight pad. I got this Blaze Blue themed fight pad that I got at MagFest a couple years back, and I was using the old Canva Q1 joystick. It's the first arcade like fight stick that I got myself. The first good quality fight stick. I think you can still get one for like, I don't know, $60. Fight stick aficionados will poo-poo on it, but I also have a $200 stick, and yes, the $200 stick is better, but it's pretty close. So I had this really expensive fight stick, and I was using that to play my shmup, and my son was using the old gamepad, and we were doing local multiplayer shooting action in Jamestown. Jamestown is still an amazing game. I kind of forgot how awesome that game was, because I got that in 2011, and this is before I really fell head over heels for shmups, right? That didn't happen until probably say like 2016, maybe 2016, maybe as late as 2017. No, not that late. I would say early 2016 is when that happened. That's when I went to MagFest with NG one year, and he was like, "This is what Dodonpachi is." And I was like, "Oh, so cool." And then from then on, I was hooked. But this was before that. This is my first time revisiting it since I became like a big shmup guy. And I really enjoyed it. Jamestown has some really cool mechanics, especially when you get into multiplayer. Because when you play it single player, it just seems like this is an impossibly hard game. There's really no way to get any traction. But there's a mechanic in multiplayer where if one of the two people dies, as long as somebody stays alive, you can keep playing. So there's not a life count per se. It's just somebody has to stay alive. And then you have to wait for the cooldown to get back in. There will also be... excuse me. There's also like revive items that you can pick up to revive your teammate fast. But the basic idea is as long as you both don't die at the same time, you're okay. And then if you do die at the same time, it uses one of your credits, and then you have like 2 credits to start with. So you can get through a very difficult game, you know, by using this mechanic. So I didn't realize that it was so much easier when you played with a partner. So my son and I played Jamestown and loved it, and we're definitely going to play that more. In fact, that's probably what I'm looking forward to most about the weekend is playing Jamestown with my son again, because that was awesome. Jamestown is a great game. I might have to show that one again to, I should say show it to them, but they know all about it. But it might be fun to play some local multi-Jamestown with Hemrock and Darabka when they're in town for MagFest. I got to be thinking, actually, that raises a really good point. I have to think about what are the great local multiplayer games to play when they get here. What are like the best local multiplayer games? I can think of a couple. there's the one which the name escapes me that every year at MagFest I want to play it. It's like Neon something. Capsule Force, that's what it's called. Capsule Force, a 4-player platforming battler game, which is pretty cool. Nidhogg is another great local multiplayer game. I've got a game called Hidden in Plain Sight, which is another MagFest classic. Engie and I played that at MagFest a whole bunch. And then Rivals of Ether is another great game. That one has online multi, but Hemrock and Sean don't own it. And then finally we've got Super Mario War. If you've never played Super Mario War, it's a 4-player multi-battler game using Super Mario Brothers physics. So it's not like Smash Brothers. You're actually using the platforming physics, and you have to like jump on top of the other people or that sort of thing. So MagFest last year, when Hemrock was in town, it was me and Hemrock and Engie, and we all played. We all took the time to set up Super Mario War, and I did this long process of getting the gamepads all set up and getting it all configured. And then once it was all set, we had kind of moved on to something else, so we didn't really play the game too much. So I've had this game sitting on my computer since then, and I've even revisited it with my son a couple of times and played it. And it's fun. There's fun to be had, but there is no online multiplayer, so that's one to play while the boys are in town, and that's really it. So Super Mario War is another good local multiplayer pick. So you guys out there who run Steam collections, not so much you console people, because you console people, I know everything is designed for local multiplayer to some extent, but it's less common on the PC. What are some games that have local multiplayer only, like modes, that you would like to play given the chance? I don't know. Maybe there's not too many of them. I can think of a couple, but it happens occasionally where there's a game that maybe on the Steam store it's not marked as having multiplayer. But if you could cram 2 people on a keyboard, on a single keyboard, because that's the way old, what do you call it? That's the way very old PC games used to handle local multiplayer. If you go back to like the Windows 95 era, with games like Hunter Hunted, yeah, if you wanted to play that multiplayer, you got 2 people on a keyboard. Death Rally was like that too. The original Death Rally, that was a great game. How we doing? 17 minutes in? Alright, boys and girls. So that's it for me. I'm looking forward to playing Jamestown with my son, getting out the old arcade stick, playing some more Jamestown. And with that, I'm going to send you guys back to the studio.
Back in the studio, this is off of Battle of the Bits Summer Chip 9, which came out the very same week. Now, this one's free to download just the same as the Chiptunes Equals Win is, but these don't stay free. The very next time another one comes up, they're going to start charging for the zip file, so make sure you head over to battleofthebits.org, click the Bandcamp link in the upper right-hand corner, and download that zip file. So this is from David R.D., and it's called Freeze Pop. This is another kind of mixed guitar and chiptune sort of deal. And man, oh man, this is a big album. We're looking at, hang on a second. They're always huge, and this one's 38 tracks. So good for them. Battle of the Bits, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Back again in the studio, feeling good. It's Friday night when I'm recording this, hanging out. We're going to go back to the van one more time for one of the better van casts, in my opinion. One of the more full, lively, good discussion type van casts. But before that, I want to take a minute to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored podcast. These guys give their resources to help make sure we can come back every week. Because let's face it, I don't get any money from YouTube. I don't get any money from Google AdSense. I don't get any money from any sponsors. Nothing. All I get is these guys. So to them, I offer early access to the show as soon as it gets put together. I put it up so that they can get it. Everybody else gets it on Monday morning. And I also read their names off in the Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Konstantin Kelman. Thank you guys so much for supporting, maintaining your subscriptions, and I hope you guys are enjoying the party. And with that, let's go back to the van. Morning, everybody. It's Thursday morning. It's the van cast. 37 degrees outside right now at 6:23. Getting ready to head off to work and do my day at the office. Very crispy. Very nice, crispy, cold weather. Not too bad, but just a little bit of cold to wake you up in the morning. And with that, I'm off. Here I go. Okay, so played some more Jamestown last night with my son. What a game. Still amazing. I'm getting better at it now than I think I ever have been before. Figuring out more of some like the finer mechanics. Jamestown has this that doesn't have like a traditional bomb or screen clear option. What it has is like a power mechanic where you collect items until your meter is full, and then you press the vaunt button, which is what they call it. And then you go into this sort of overdrive mode where your bullets deal way more damage. When I used to play this, what I didn't realize is when you do that and you go into this overdrive mode, you get a circle around you which will clear all the bullets. Not the whole screen, but just in your local vicinity for just like a couple of seconds. So I didn't realize that years ago when I used to play that. So I take that into account now. So when I'm in my traditional bullet hell scenario where I can see the wall of bullets coming and there ain't no way around it, I'll hit that vaunt button and create just a 2 or 3 second shield and just push right through it. And knowing that has really made it a lot easier. So still into Jamestown. Still a great game. There's DLC for it that I've never bought, even after all these years. But it's only like a $2.50 package. It gives you access to a couple more ships and some more challenge modes and things like that. I don't know. If we're still playing this next week, my son and I, then I think I might finally pick that up, which would be cool. Uh-oh, what's this on the road now? Hang on a second. Something with some flashing lights. Oh, it's a garbage truck. Okay, that's not so bad. Not so bad. All right. Let's turn on the heat here.
just a little bit. Okay. Right, so we talked a little bit about Jamestown. I got a big box PC game in the mail yesterday. First one in quite a long time. It was Europa Universalis 2. Had the first one big box for several years. I saw this one complete for $12. Now I have it on GOG. This has the big instruction manual and I kind of wanted it. So it showed up and the box is worn. You know, it's somebody has owned this thing. But when you open it up, the CD is still unwrapped. So I think it was owned by somebody who was in the same scenario as me, where it's like, look, I got it on GOG, I just kind of want to have the box. So that's cool. So I got another box. Those first couple of Europa Universalis games were pretty sweet. I think the third one was really where it hit its stride. That was a series that it kind of had humble beginnings, I guess. But it became something really great by the time EU3 came out. Yeah, so that's cool. So I will be checking that out hopefully in the coming weeks, I guess. But for now, it's just another game on the shelf. Still playing Jamestown, still playing Territory Idle, and I'm playing, still playing a little Dead by Daylight. I had a session yesterday where in my 3-monitor sweep, in the center monitor I was playing Dead by Daylight, and in the left monitor I was playing Territory Idle, and in the right monitor I didn't set it up, but it occurred to me that in the right monitor I could play a second Idle game, and I would have achieved playing 3 video games at once on a 3-monitor sweep. So I thought that was kind of funny. Let's see. We're kind of in crazy release mode over on Bandcamp in the chiptune department. So we had a couple of releases on Battle of the Bits, right? We had very rare formats, and then we had spring tracks, I think 8 or whatever. The one I submitted to and didn't get on. Both of those came out super close to each other. Now we have Summer Tracks 11, which came out yesterday. So that's 3. Boom, boom, boom. So I missed out on Spring Tracks while that was free. So I went ahead and threw my $1 down immediately and got Summer Tracks 11 associated to my account. So Summer Tracks 11 from Battle of the Bits. Over at Chiptunes Equals Win, they've got, I think it's Fistful of Chips or something, some sort of Western themed chiptune album. And I initially skipped it, but now they're taking pre-orders for cassette tapes. So I'm thinking I might check it out. To give you a little backstory, last Christmas, they had a Christmas-themed chiptune album, Chiptune Equals Winter Wonderland, something like that. And it was really good. It was a really good collection. Excuse me. And they did the same thing. They took pre-orders for tapes. It became the #1 selling tape on Bandcamp. And of course, I threw my money down, got a copy as well. And, if you look at what Vaporwave cassettes cost, it's actually pretty reasonably charged, reasonably priced. You're looking at about $13 shipped inside the United States. So, for one of these major compilations, getting a cassette release, not too bad in my opinion. I've paid less for a tape, but if you're going to pay less, it usually ends up being for like a short EP or something. So yeah, that kind of makes me want to check it out. The only downside was that winter chip tape, it took 5 months to get out. And remember, this is a seasonal tape that came out around Christmas time. So I didn't end up getting that thing until like May or something crazy like that. So I haven't really done anything with it because I'm waiting for the holiday season. So I have that old Winter Wonderland tape standing by right after Thanksgiving. That's going to go into the tape deck. And we'll be jamming to some winter chip tunes. So I don't know. When I go to put this week's episode together, I'm not sure which one of these I'm going to dive into and play tracks off of, but we're going to see. Those are both major releases coming out at the same time. So I would recommend you guys head over to Bandcamp. At least download the zips. You know, you might not want to throw the $1 down and get it attached to your account like I do, which I completely understand. But get yourself copies of the zip files. The Chiptunes Equals Win one is going to be free forever. They never charge money for their zips. But the Battle of the Bits one is only going to be free until the next one comes out. And lately they've been coming out every week. So get it while you can, boys and girls. How we doing? Dead by Daylight. I tried a few rounds as Killer in Dead by Daylight, which I haven't done in a while. I used to main the Huntress. She's the one who can throw the axes or the hatchets or whatever. Played a couple rounds as the Huntress. Didn't do very good. It was okay. I had fun because I kind of walked in knowing I was going to get hosed. But I had a yellow Mori offering. Now, if you're not familiar with Dead by Daylight, every game you play, you can burn an offering. It's like a one-time use item, and it'll affect the game somehow. Give you extra luck, give you extra blood points, give you extra whatever. Well, this is a killer-specific one, which makes it so that under specific conditions, you can actually not just hook the survivor, but actually kill them and end the round. So I used this item, and I got hosed. Everybody was escaping. And I came down to the end of the match. There were two of these survivors that were just sitting in the exit, which is what they do. They get all ready, they get to the exit hole, and then they wait there for you to show up, and that's when they leave. I never figured out why people do that. I think it's so that they can get chase blood points. But I'm using the Huntress, who has the hatchets, and I was also using No One Escapes Death, which makes it so that when you're in that ending phase, you're one hit and you're down. So I threw my hatchet, and I got one of those dudes on the floor. So I walked over, and I had the yellow Mori item, and all I had to do was M1 and kill the guy. But I got hosed so bad, I just decided to let the guy go. So he crawled out and ended the match, and that was the end. And then when we got in chat, they had all kind of realized what I had done, so we had a good, GG all around. And it was okay. I got hosed, but I still had a lot of fun, so, which was really what I was after. So that was Dead by Daylight yesterday. I don't know. I feel like once in a while I got to go back and play. If I'm still going to play this game, I should go back and play Killer, just to remember how to do it, because I only ever play as Survivor. So when I do play those Killer rounds, they tend to be quite difficult for me. But whatever. It is what it is. That's the game. Now seems like a golden age to play it, because they just unlocked this cross-play feature, and I am. You can turn it on or off, but I'm in the cross-play queue, which opens up the number of people I can play against. So, in theory, that means as a low-level killer, I would be more likely to be paired with survivors who are at my same skill level, right? So using that logic, this is a good time to play. At least until they change things again. Yeah, so that's Dead by Daylight. Still fun. I have 153 hours in that game, which to me feels like a lot. But to other Dead by Daylight players, it doesn't seem like very much. Most of the people who I run into, at least on Discord, 300, 400, 500 plus is no big deal. Not me, man. 300, 400, 500 plus in a single game. That doesn't happen very often. It's only happened a couple times, actually. I've only crossed at least in terms of a Steam game, I've only ever crossed 300 with Terraria and with Garry's Mod. And I'm trying to think of the next game that comes close. Maybe Counter-Strike Global Offensive. or Trackmania, which I got to 250 hours in, but neither one of those games are really getting played anymore. And Counter-Strike Global Offensive made the front page again, right? Good old Counter-Strike. Now, if you were listening back in those days, I don't even know if I was doing TCR in those days, but back in college, CSGO was my game. I loved it. It was the reason I built the computer I have now. I built it specifically to play CSGO. But that drifted off, I think, when my daughter was born. I got in one spot where I had acquired a couple of bands for various reasons. And the thing about getting banned in CSGO is it's cumulative. First it's only a half hour, then it's 2 hours, then it's 6 hours. Well, I was playing and my daughter was still very, very young, and she threw up in the middle of the night, and I was playing competitive. So I had to go help her, you know? No big deal. The call of fatherhood. Drop everything right in the middle of the match. Go make sure she's okay. Now, my wife woke up at the same time. We got her taken care of. And then she was like, you know what? I got this. You can go back to what you're doing. That's okay. I was like, that's great. No problem. My daughter was feeling better, and there was no worries. I went back to the game, and I acquired a 7-day ban for that, for walking away from a competitive match to do that. And I mean, you can spin that all sorts of ways. I think looking back, that 7-day ban was deserved, not because I had to go take care of my daughter, but for all the stuff that happened leading up to that, because it's cumulative. If I never dropped from a match, that would have only been a 30-minute ban. But nonetheless, at the time, I felt like, look, I can't play this game if, you know, every time fatherhood calls, I'm going to get something like this. So that was really the end of me being big into CSGO. Played it a couple times after that, but by the time they released their Battle Royale mode, I was already kind of out of it. Hadn't played much. And now they just released a new operation, a new like map pack and medal combo, which they haven't done since I used to play. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a try again. Who knows? I have a lot of good memories in CSGO, but I've reached a point where I think that they're just going to stay memories. Having more fun with Dead by Daylight. Halo is making the front page. Well, not the front page, but it's got a Steam listing. I think it's still in pre-order stages. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to check. But the Halo Master Chief Collection has a listing on Steam, and it is the second top-selling game. Now, I'm not sure if this is a pre-order listing, or if it's actually out at this point. Nonetheless, the rumors are true. Master Chief Collection, this is on Steam. This is something that people have been talking about for a year plus, and I'm looking forward to it. Oh, hang on a second. Let me see if I can make this a little quieter in the cab. There we go. It's a little better. I'm not going to go through the whole routine, but Halo is a very special game to me. Back in my college days, early, when I was like 20, I had a basement apartment, and a bunch of guys would come over and play Halo. Basement apartment with a roommate, and we had an Xbox with Halo on it. This is a Halo, and it's in the peak of its popularity, and people would just stop by and play. I remember playing, some of my friends playing Halo drinking games, which I never did because I'm not a drinker, but that was the thing. So now all that's going to be available on Steam, and this is like a Worlds Collide kind of moment. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is this really going to be? I mean, $40, which in my opinion, for what they're offering, multiple Halo games, is this really going to be something I'm going to play? Really? I don't know. Because the whole idea that Halo was super popular at that time was we had the first real viable competitive FPS on a console. Wasn't the first FPS on a console. Wasn't even the first playable FPS on a console. Like, if you don't count Doom on the Super Nintendo. We had Unreal Tournament on the PS2. But this was the first time I ever remember an FPS on a console getting mega ultra popular. But now, I mean, on a PC, you're putting that same game up against, every other FPS that ever walked the face of the earth. So I can't really say I would load up Halo as opposed to, Dead by Daylight or something. Or Counter-Strike Global Offensive if I wanted to go the FPS route again. But I'm really kind of mulling it over in my head. I don't know. I haven't come to a decision yet. One thing that worries me with these Halo games is that the player base isn't going to be what it used to be. Because, look, I love a computer. I'm a PC guy. I think the best games in the world are on the PC. Hands down. This is not even a question. Best games in the world are on PC. But I have to admit, the player base on PC has also never been what it was on the console games. If you look at the player base on a Call of Duty game on the consoles when they were at their peak popularity, it was like nothing we've ever seen. We're talking like millions of people playing the one single game. You don't get that on Steam, right? We crossed into 1 million players playing, what was that game that was super popular last year? PUBG. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. We had like 1 million players playing that, but a lot of that was people in China because the game was less expensive there. But nonetheless, we crossed into 1 million, but that was one game, which, by the way, doesn't cross into 1 million anymore. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, not even in the top 3 most played games on Steam. People still play it, still in the top 10. But you would log on to, say, Modern Warfare 2, and it would show you how many people. It would have a head count that would show you an enormous number of players, and that number, I'd have to do some research to get you some figures, but they were always higher on the console. They just were. So the point I'm making is, you can't get the Master Chief Collection expecting for Combat Evolved, the first Halo, to have the player base it had back in those days. It's just not going to be the same. People are going to play it, that's for sure. Again, second most selling game on Steam. I don't even think it's out yet. But I think it's going to go through a golden age when it first comes out, where everyone's going to play it, and no matter which game you want to play, there's going to be players. I think that's going to die down, and I think ultimately people are going to get their dose of nostalgic video gaming, and they're going to move on to the next thing. So if you want to play that first Halo game on PC with other people, and yes, I know it used to be on PC, it's there already, then I think this is one instance where you got to jump on it when the iron's hot. Another case of this was Blood, right? I can't even remember when this was. Not too long ago. I want to say last year, but it might have even been this year. Blood got a remake. What was it called? Fresh Blood? Something like that? 100% fresh whole blood? I don't know, something like that. The old Build Engine game from the 90s, Blood, where you play as Caleb. That was re-emerged on Steam with fully functioning multiplayer. And it was really something special. I jumped on that. It's one of the few times I bought a game at release. I bought that, and that first week, you could get on, press the multiplayer button, and there would be a whole page of games, and you could just jump on any game. It was awesome. It was so cool. So cool. And it was something that was worth paying the premium for. But it died. It just did. It happened. And it didn't take long. Now, if you get Blood, the multiplayer still works. It's still supported. But you better have friends who have it, or you better be willing to get on a Discord server or get on those forums and start flagging down people who also have the game. And you're going to be setting up, game times and that kind of thing. And that kind of thing can be really difficult to do. So, it just is what it is. I'm wondering. I don't think the same thing's going to happen to Halo. I don't think Halo's going to die completely, but I think it's going to be nothing like its first week or month or whatever. It really won't. That's my opinion of the Master Chief Collection on Steam. So I'm either going to get while the iron's hot, or I don't know, probably not. I know for a fact that none of my friends are gonna buy this thing. It's just not gonna happen. Alex Swingle, my good buddy, who I play a lot of these types of things with when I can, I know he's gonna pass on it. Tell me I'm wrong, Alex. I'm not wrong. You're gonna pass on this. There's no way you're gonna pay $40 for the Master Chief Collection. Just not gonna happen. Who else would I play this with? Sean, I think. What do you think, Sean? Master Chief Collection, yes or no? I think Sean's too busy playing Skyrim. I don't know. Sean's a question mark. Sean, you got to tell me, buddy. I don't know if you're interested in this thing or not. So, I don't know. We'll see. If all of my friends picked this up, this would be a no question type scenario. Be like day one, yoinkity yoink. I'd have it purchased already, but I got MagFest just around the corner, right? We're halfway through November already, and MagFest is the beginning of January. So we're like realistically like a month and 3 weeks away from MagFest. I got to be putting money away. I want to be buying records while I'm down there. There's one-of-a-kind vinyl when you go to MagFest. I want to walk away with a stack of Atari games. I gotta save some money for this Airbnb that we got. It's gonna be a great time, but this is a time to save for the upcoming con, for sure, no doubt about it. Wow, I really went on quite a bit. We're 25 minutes in. I don't usually do these for this long. With that, boys and girls, I'm going to send you guys back to the studio. See you there.
Is it too late for Master Chief? I don't know. I like to think that it isn't, and that he'll find new life on the PC. So with that, boys and girls, let's go back to the fail bag. This is the part of the show where we can interact, just you and me, directly, talking about video games, or chiptunes, or whatever else it is you feel like talking about. If you know me personally, you can just shoot me an email. Just make sure you're clear about what I can and cannot say on the air. Oh, hang on a second. Gulf Audio Company. Oh, jeez. Just released something. It looks like they are getting ready to do a VHS tape. Oh, pretty sweet. All right, yeah. Just make sure you're clear about what I can read on the air, so there's no missteps. So let's do this. Last week we got one from Hemrock, and it was I just ran out of time to record. So there we go. Well, that's how we're gonna kick off. That's how we're gonna kick off the fail bag this week. So he writes, "Hey CF, Hemrock here. Thought I'd chime in. Thanks as usual for keeping up with TCR. Another big thank you for mentioning Battle of the Bits. I'm currently downloading their new album while I listen to the very catchy Zemogasa by Sapphire Eyes. That's track 25 for anybody with a spring track album. This stuff is amazing. It reminds me that I need to get together my MagFest playlist for my trip out to DC. Speaking of chiptunes, Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 8 is out, as you may know. Yes, it is, Hemrock. I got Volume 8. I haven't listened to it much. I went all the way through. And there's one that I play in my car consistently, but I don't think it's Volume 8. Hang on a second. But let's read on. Yeah, so you mentioned spring tracks. Get summer tracks. It just came out. This email came in 11 days ago, so they've released a new one since then. Let's get back to the email. He writes, so you mentioned Lords of Magic and how 0 people listening would have played. Correction, my friend. Lords of Magic is a gem. I played this game back in the day when I was a kid. Surprisingly, I still have the original disc. If you're looking for some quick tips, yes I am, play as Life and build a bunch of elvish archers. Early in the game, you can kill most enemies at range with these archers. Take your archers and attack the Nation of Air. Once conquered, you can produce rather powerful air units such as the Storm Giants. I think they also have a Wind Drake or some kind of dragon. If you combine those with your Elvis archers, you can steamroll over most enemies that come your way in the early to mid-game. Anyway, take that with a grain of salt as I'm going off of a distant foggy memory. I also remember that that game installing some sort of Sierra game manager, which was essentially an early form of malware. It was the herpes of my computer back in the day. Once installed, you'll never get that game manager utility off your system unless you're willing to reinstall the OS. So because of that, I haven't played that game in years, and I hear the GOG version is inferior in some way. Not sure if that's true. Have you had any troubles with your GOG versions of Lord of Magic? You said you had the CD for the game at some point. Do you remember that mandatory Sierra utility that installed with the game? Have you downloaded the most recent patch? I'd love to hear some Lords of Magic tips from Sean, the Gaming Beast. All right, quick break from the email, because yes, there is more. Let's talk about Lords of Magic for a minute. Man, was I wrong. So Alex Swingo played it, you played it, and I'm sure Sean played it. He's the one I haven't heard from. Everybody in our circle seems to have played that game. So about the CD, I did have the CD, yes. It disappeared. I don't know where it went. I have a feeling it ended up in the retro junk box. But I never actually installed it from the CD. I've been playing the GOG version. The GOG version seems just fine to me. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's an endgame thing, maybe not. I also have it on Steam. Now, I didn't recently buy it on Steam. It just turns out it's in my collection already. So I guess somewhere along the line, I saw it on sale, picked it up, didn't realize I already had it. But yeah, we went 3.5 hours total, my son and I. Didn't run into any technical problems. My son has said he's gotten tired of it, but I still like it. I think it's an awesome game. I played as the fire people, and I kept running into problems, so I switched over to the dwarves. And the dwarves have a really good. They have a really good squad of units. Problem is, they don't get much traction out on the field. You can only walk like a little bit before the end of the turn. So yeah, we'll try your plan. Sounds good. I don't remember. I didn't ever install it off of the CD, but it's funny because I do remember that Sierra utility. I mean, we had other Sierra games. I couldn't give you, for instance. I'm thinking, but Half-Life was a Sierra game. No, that can't be right. Is it? Hang on a second. Hang on just a cotton-picking second. Yeah. My eyes do deceive me. Now, when I say Half-Life being a Sierra game, your knee-jerk reaction, I'm sure, is, no, Half-Life is a Valve game. Valve handles their own distribution. And you'd be right, but I got a copy of the old CD. Hear that? That's the CD case. And sure enough, Sierra Studios, they must have assisted with distribution somehow. When I flip over the back, there's an ad for Half-Life Opposing Force, Homeworld, and SWAT 3. Close Quarters Battle. So maybe that's where I remember having it from. I also remember, I'm looking up on my shelf now. We had a game called Hunter Hunted, which was a side-scrolling game that I really enjoyed as a kid. That was also a Sierra game, so maybe one of those places. We did have the program you're talking about, though. And I always thought of it as like the Sierra do-nothing program that we never really could make work. Back to the email. That's cool that your boy has the patience to watch you play Lords of Magic. Does he try and give you advice, or does he simply watch quietly? I just played some Super Mario Bros. 3 with my daughter this evening. That was cool. Okay, he never watches quietly. He always engages. He's a talker, which makes it awesome if we're playing a game we're both interested in. So he would give advice, do this, try this, use this, make those guys do this, and eventually he started playing himself. And that lasted for a while, and eventually he got tired of it and moved on. But it was a very short-lived but golden time with Lords of Magic that I enjoyed very much. He goes on. You also mentioned the retro junk box on your last episode of TCR. Well, folks, this is why we can't have nice things. I never got it back, despite my repeated efforts to do so. Okay, hang on a second, Hemrock. Who had it on the last stop? Because I remember you talking about it in the old Emerald Rangers forums, and the last guy eventually did say, "Oh, let me get it to you. I need your address again." Go back to those forums and try and touch base with that guy, because I think he will send it to you. And if you're listening, person who owns the last retro junk box, let me know if you need assistance with the shipping costs, because we want to bring this puppy to a close. Back to the email. He writes, on another note, I submitted my Civilization 2 scenario to the wonderful world of the internet. I posted it on the Scenario League forums. Unfortunately, it hasn't gathered much attention, other than a couple of posts telling me that the link was broken, which I subsequently fixed. In any case, here is the link to check it out. It has the most recent version of the scenario, which I believe is 1 or 2 versions newer than the one I gave you. All right, quick break. So, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Hemrock is a big fan of Civilization 2. Not 3, not 6, not 5, 2. That's his favorite. And he has been working on a steampunk scenario, which is pretty cool. He's given me a couple of versions. I was playing it 2 nights ago. I settled into playing as... Okay, before I start getting into some specifics, I kept this under wraps because I knew this was an active project he was working on. I didn't want it to break before he was ready, but now he's released it publicly. That means I can do whatever I want with it. Correct me if I'm wrong, old buddy Hemrock, but I played a couple of games as the Fu Manchu. You'll have to play it to understand because they seem to have the most solidarity. They're not involved in a civil war when at the start of the game. There are ninjas all over the game, but in the version I've been playing, the ninjas are represented with icons of elephants. Like, the things that you're playing against are graphically mismatched, which is something I'm sure he's fixed in his newer version. Like you'll fight the Great Kraken in the ocean, but it's just represented by a person because the graphics are not correct. But the actual gameplay, I'm enjoying it. It got me back into Civ 2. So now that he has released it, I'm going to get the version he's just linked here, and then we're going to do some Let's Play action of Hemrock's Civilization 2 Steam Edition. But let's get back to the email. All right. Emulation was discussed last week. You said that you did not have the internet, so you had to rely on a friend and a floppy disk. Did the Nesticle program fit all in one 5 1/4-inch floppy, or did you have to divide it into multiple disks? I think most floppies would only hold 1.44 megabyte worth of data. Did you ever figure out controller mapping as a kid, or did you just stick with a keyboard? All right, a couple of questions here. First and foremost, yes, it all fit in one floppy disk, and yes, floppy disks were 1.44 megabytes worth of data. That's an HD floppy disk. Yes, high density is what the HD stood for. If you actually looked at how much free space it was, you cleared less than 144 megabyte worth of data after formatting. But Nesticle fit all in one disk. Now, I was using an MS-DOS version of Nesticle, and it was a much older version of Nesticle. If you go download it now, it's probably going to be bigger than 144 megabyte. But it did the job back in those days. And you also asked if I ever figured out controller mapping. So I had something called a Gravis gamepad. A Gravis gamepad which connected to the computer via a serial port. So now we're all used to USB, but in those days you had to have like a 9 or 10 pin serial cable, like the same kind of thing you would hook a printer up with or something like that. Not quite a printer, I'm exaggerating, but it was a big back of the computer type controller cable. So the Gravis gamepad had issues with centering, all right? So if you loaded, let's say you loaded up a test program, or what's a game everybody's familiar with that has 8 directions? I don't know, like Contra with the top-down levels, and you know how there was top-down levels in Super Contra? That's really reaching. Guerrilla War. Let's say you're playing Guerrilla War. That's a perfect example. Now in Guerrilla War, you can press up to move up, you can press down to move down, right, left, and then the diagonals as well. Akari Warriors, same kind of deal. If you're using the Gravis gamepad, and you are standing still, meaning not touching that controller pad at all, the little man would he would jiggle. He would go left and right, up and down in short bursts, because the Gravis gamepad had a very difficult time centering. Now that was either the Gravis gamepad, which had that issue, or Nesticle's joystick calibration. I'm inclined to think it was a combination of both. Once we moved over to USB for handling controllers, all of that disappeared. But that wasn't until after the internet came along. So in the days of 3 1/4-inch floppies, I didn't bother. I did have a Gravis gamepad, but I just didn't worry about it. I stuck with the keyboard. Back to the email. Anywho, I'm getting pretty pumped for MagFest. What are some of the things you hope to get out of this year's con? Such as video games to play, stuff to buy, concerts, etc. Would you ever consider doing a Tiger Claw TV special MagFest kind like what the Happy Video Game Nerd used to do? Per Death Adder's request, I can film you and Sean's epic battle. It's funny you mentioned the Happy Video Game Nerd's old MagFest videos. We're talking like circa 2008, 2009. And those were actually what drew my attention to MagFest initially. They made it look like a lot of fun. But let's be honest. When I go to MagFest, it's not as action-packed as in those videos. For one thing, I don't ever go to... Well, I was about to say I don't ever go to hotel parties, but I wouldn't say that's true. Me and Angie, we would have our own late into the night brawls on my computer in the hotel room, and some of those memories are the best that ever happened at MagFest. Some of the most lasting memories. Probably one of my favorite MagFest memories of all time was me and Angie on my computer. I think he had his laptop also, and we were. He had just bought an arcade stick, a nice big expensive one, and I had an arcade stick of my own, not the $200 one I have now, but I had a $60 Canba arcade stick, and we were playing shmups, and he was showing me all of these awesome shmups that he had. He had this installation of MAME that he got prepackaged that was like a special shmup edition of MAME. Okay, and he was like, this is a very rare installation. I don't know where to get this anymore. It's got a bunch of games you can't get anywhere else, and it's got a bunch of games that you can download, but they're not going to work. Somehow they have it calibrated to work. Okay, it's fine. This was the first time I ever played Dodonpachi, was in the hotel room at MagFest. All right? And we played that, and in that same day, we went head-to-head in a game called Twinkle Star Sprites, and we just tore it up for like a couple hours, going back and forth in Twinkle Star Sprites. This is my fondest memory of MagFest, is doing that. And every year we go, I kind of hope something like that's going to happen again, and it never does, because that year we were in a place where the TVs were in good shape, and everything worked just fine. And we were not at the Marriott. We stayed at the Marriott for 3 years in a row after that happened. And the Marriott, as you know, the TVs do not accept other inputs. And we found a way around that, but there was input lag, so we couldn't actually play games. So some of my most favorite memories, that and watching Joe Bob Briggs clips. I think there was another year we watched Joe Bob Briggs until we fell asleep. So none of that is in the con. All of that's in the room. Not to mention mostly with equipment that we brought, not that we got at the con. So what I'm looking forward to, I'm definitely looking forward to the Chiptunes showcases. I did that for the first time last year, and I'm unbelievably excited this year. I'm gonna go. I got some vinyl record money. Last year I think I got 3 records, and that was it. So I'm looking to see what records are on sale. What else? If Chiptunes Equals Win has another T-shirt out, I'll probably get the new T-shirt. I'm looking for Atari games. That's in the gaming front. I'm looking for Atari games and old school gray Game Boy games. DMG Game Boy games. That's what I like. And I also like loose Famicom carts. I find those a lot every year. So those are just a few things. But mostly I'm going to jam out to the terrible rave chip music. I don't even care about the big stage. I don't care. I don't care who's on. Last year they had Mega Ran. I guess that was okay. I'm not a big Mega Ran fan. But Chiptunes, the Chiptune stage was really something else. That was my favorite thing. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I can't even remember what you asked about the Happy Video Game Nerd. You know, a video like that, to get all those shots, he was getting shots of like all the merch tables, and I don't know. When I'm there during the time to get those shots, for some reason, I don't want to get my camera out and start filming everything. I want to live it. You know what I'm saying? So I've done a couple of MagFest videos in the past, though. I don't know. We'll do something. With you there and with Sean there, we'll have to. There's going to have to be some sort of MagFest related video. We'll see. All right. Back to the email. Let's see. Anywho, yeah. Also, do you mind doing a "What's on My Desk" segment for this or a future episode of TCR? Will you ever bring back the quick NES reviews you do on Tiger Claw TV? Well, better get going. Take care, my friend, and keep rolling retro Hemrock. The old NES reviews are probably going to make a comeback because I stopped doing them when I got a better webcam, and I stopped using my traditional camcorder, which is what they were being recorded on. Now, the webcam that I got to replace it, it's not working right now. And lo and behold, I still have the stack of games that I was going to do next. Pinball, Guardian Legend, Ghosts and Goblins, Final Fantasy, Faxanadu, and some sort of Tengen game. I can't tell what it is. Probably Gauntlet, because they were in alphabetical order. Yeah, Gauntlet. There you go. I could record all of those in an afternoon if I could get an afternoon off. I probably should have done it this past weekend. I had an afternoon off. I didn't think about it. Yeah, I'll bring that back. What's on my desk? So those of you who don't know what's on my desk, let me explain. Years and years and years ago, there was a company called J2 Games, I believe it was. And J2 Games was shopping around for podcasts to sponsor. I use the word sponsor lightly. What they were really doing was providing discount codes. You'd read the discount code over the air, and if somebody went to J2 Games and bought a game using that discount code, you got a little cut. Not much, but a cut. So at the time, I was talking to like 2 or 3 other podcasts, and the J2 Games people listened to all the podcasts in the group, and all of the other guys got sponsorships. They got these discount codes, and I did not. And at the time, the reason they gave was because I didn't talk about actual purchasable, like old retro Nintendo games enough. Not just Nintendo, but Sega or whatever. They wanted to hear people talk about games that they were selling. And that's not what I was doing. At the time, I was very, very limited in my financial resources. So I would talk about freeware games. You know, hey, did you guys download the Game Maker version of Spelunky? It's free. Did you guys download the free version of Cave Story? You know, did you guys download what was it? Terry Kavanagh's game that got me hooked, Self-Destruct? It's free. That's what I liked to talk about in those days. So they passed over me. After that happened, immediately following that, I was like, look, I got to fix this. I got to find some way to talk about the games that people, can buy. Games that you talk about them and people will recognize them immediately. Twisted Metal 2. I say those words, you know what game that is. That's what I need. So in order to force that to happen, I had a section called On the Desk, and whatever actual games were sitting on my desk, I would go over them. Not in a review, just I would read the games off and talk about them. Most of the time it would be some sort of memory. So that's what he's talking about here when he says, are you ever going to bring back On the Desk? Sure, On the Desk is going to make a comeback. The problem is, I don't often have games on the desk right now, so I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to see what's in the local vicinity. Give me a second here. Alright, so this is how On the Desk would work. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for On the Desk. First game up. Probably one of my favorite thrift store finds. You don't find games like this anymore at the thrift store. This is Bust-A-Move 2, the arcade edition, for the Nintendo 64. At the time, I think it retailed on eBay for like $20 to $30. I don't know what it costs now, but I got it for less than $1. Bust-A-Move 2. Puzzle Dapon. Puzzle Bobble. It's one of those types of games, if you remember Bust-A-Move or not. I like it. I like it a lot because I like the Puzzle Bobble type games, and I like the fact that this one actually stars Bub and Bob from Bubble Bobble. So that's Bust-A-Move 2, the arcade edition. And it looks good. It also came out on the Sega Saturn, but if you've ever seen the Sega Saturn cover of Bust-A-Move, it has like a guy sticking toothpicks in his eyelids, and it's very gross, very like 1990s when being gross was cool. But Bust-A-Move 2 is awesome. And I was very lucky to get that for the 64, and it's one of the few games that I have for the 64. Okay, of the games that I have for the 64, because I don't have many, that is one of the really good ones. Alright, so I also have the Game Boy Color Ice Blue Edition. Listen to this. Just listen. Oh yeah, you know that sound. You know what that sound is. Alright, what's actually in here? A slot machine game. Hear that? Yeah. An import. Not much of anything, I think, that would fly very far here. But what is worth mentioning is this Ice Blue Game Boy Color. Let me tell you guys, when this came out, I wanted a Game Boy Color very badly. You don't understand. It's impossible to make somebody understand how huge the Game Boy was for me. My older brother had one, and I talk about this quite often, is being envious of my older brother's original Game Boy. And I didn't get a Game Boy until he had already moved out of the house. He moved out of the house as a very young man. And I ended up getting a Game Boy when he was gone. So I never got to experience him and I playing Game Boy together. Not once did that ever happen. What I did get to experience was looking at the Game Boy over his shoulder. That was as close as I ever came in that department. So the Game Boy Color came along once that era was already put to bed. But by this time, people at school started to have them. I didn't really see that before. It's like Pokemon days, which was really cool. But I didn't have a Game Boy Color. I had a Game Boy Pocket, which I was very lucky to have. I had a clear Game Boy Pocket, which somebody stole. So when did I actually get this Game Boy Color? This was, I think Engie was buying stuff off of the internet. And we figured out at the time it was less expensive to buy Game Boy games in a lot by a long shot than it was to buy them individually. So he was buying Game Boy games in big lots, and sometimes they came with Game Boy units. And for the same price as getting them without the Game Boy. It was very weird. It's a weird time. So he would just turn up with these extra Game Boy Colors, and twice he said, "Here, you can have this." So I have this Atomic Purple Game Boy Color, which I love, and I still, to this day, this is my Game Boy of choice right now. And that's my Game Boy Color. Two more. Going to be much faster than that. Here's one for you. Galactic Civilizations 2 Dreadlords. The CD for it. So I was looking at big box PC games recently, and this one came up. Galactic Civilizations. It's from Stardock Entertainment. Here we are back in PC games again. This is a CD-ROM PC game. I like Civilization. It comes up here a lot on the show. Civilization in space. It's 3D. There's several planes of existence. It's just weird. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around this game. I kind of like this CD version because it doesn't have all of the expansion packs. So if you buy it on Steam, it's not going to look quite the same. Let's face it, your Steam version is going to be better. You're going to have access to all the races and stuff. But this little CD case is pretty cool, man. It's got a little gatefold to it with a lot of artwork. I took pictures of it and the instructions and everything, and I posted it on Steam as artwork so that if you go to the community hub for Galactic Civilizations 2, you'll see all that there, which is something people seem to enjoy. Very last game we have is another one that's near and dear to my heart. It's the original Wing Commander, Wing Commander 1, but it's the Super Nintendo version. Hear that? That's the sound of a Super Nintendo cartridge. I got really lucky, and I bought Wing Commander along with Wing Commander The Secret Missions for the Super Nintendo. Secret Missions, of course, is the game they gave its own cartridge. But on the computer, they're kind of bundled together. One was like an expansion pack for the other. Super Nintendo version's okay. It's very different. It can't quite do what the PC did, but I had fun with it. The controls are very difficult. There's a lot of really weird button combinations. You're going to have to experiment, and you're probably going to have to write things down. Like in order to auto jump, you press select and A together, and that sort of thing. And then there's button combinations to actually work the throttle on your spaceship, which is important for navigating asteroid fields. Wing Commander is a good game, and if you've never experienced Wing Commander, get one of those games. Doesn't matter which one. Play it on something. Doesn't matter what you play it on. They're all good for one reason or another. And this is Wing Commander on the Super Nintendo. This may be... I was going to say it may be the last Super Nintendo game I ever bought. But that's not true, because I've bought Super Famicom games. I don't know if that counts. But this may be the last American true blue, not reproduction Super Nintendo game that I've ever bought. Was Wing Commander and Wing Commander Secret Missions, which I bought together. And that's been a lot of years ago, boys and girls. More than 5 years ago. Wow. Good old Super Nintendo. Now there's a system. All right, so that's on the desk for this week. We'll do this again some other time. I don't know when. I think the end of On the Desk was when I realized I went to record the next week. Look, so I have these games that we just went through. I've got the Atomic Purple Game Boy. I've got Busted Move 2. I got Wing Commander 2, Galactic Civilizations 2. And I also have Half-Life, my old Half-Life CD. And next week when I sit down, I'm going to see these same games here. And I'm going to be like, oh, I can't do On the Desk anymore. And that's how On the Desk died. Hemrock, my man, always good to hear from you. Thanks so much for writing in. Thanks for taking the time to write those emails. Because that was a long email, but it had a lot of really good content in it. I was able to riff on that quite a bit, and I certainly do appreciate it. And with that, let's head over to YouTube. Let's get some of the other comments that people like to leave. So give me a second. I'm going to load up the YouTube thingy. Like back in the old days. Big thanks to everybody who wrote in. Much appreciated. All right, let's see. How many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, give me control of the mouse. Yeah. Okay. Got it. All right. Mecha Menace. More RAM. What are the specs of the machine you're running? You know what? I forgot to reply to that. I forgot. Sorry. I read it on the air, though. Hope you can get it fixed, man. Maybe you need more dedicated WAM. Yes, I do, and it's not that expensive anymore either. Death Adder writes, I need to Google how to get that RSS feed thing. I did it once back in 2015, I think. I don't know. I don't know how the internet works. It sucks that Podomatic is useless garbage, or I'd still upload it there as well. But I've been doing some brainstorming on plans for DAS 2020. I'll add that to the list. I've been thinking about doing an end-of-the-year Dead by Daylight Spurgout session before I collapse from exhaustion from talking about it so much. The perks I used to talk about using a year ago, I wouldn't be caught dead with now. I looked into that DBD crossplay thing you told me about. It looks like it's not quite Steam to Xbox at the moment, but who knows? Maybe 6 months from now we can play the same game together, then no longer be friends because of it. Joking. Slippery meat is fun. Actual quote from Critical Failure. Death Adder, my man. Always good to hear from you. So I think back in 2015, if I remember right, Jerry Terrifying talked us all through it. I remember one at a time he sat down with all of us who are running podcasts and he showed us how to get RSS feeds running so that you could get hooked up to a podcatcher. Quick fix, I think Podbean might do it for you rather than Podomatic. You could try opening an account on Podbean and tracking there. Don't worry about uploading your backlog. Just upload the new episode. And then from there on, hey, Death Adder Super Show is now carried by Podbean. If you want to hook us up, if you want to get the RSS feed, head over to this site. You set the link, and then there you go. Forget it. That's what I'm considering doing. I've been using Podomatic for 10 years, and I'm actually considering dropping it because I'm looking at podcast apps that are connected to several networks, and Podbean shows are carried and Podomatic shows are not. I don't think anybody is actually surfing in from the Podomatic scene So I think Podbean is where it's at. Good to hear from you, man. Best of luck with Death Adder Super Show. Julia writes in, Crash Bandicoot was always fun. Definitely an early PS memory for me. I hope your surgery goes well and you feel 100% again soon. Thanks so much. Surgery went okay. I'm back at home doing my thing. Yeah, Crash Bandicoot was a good game. Desm101 writes, as a fan of the old Star Wars games, I'd really like to own big box versions of Rebel Assault, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, and the original Wing Commander series. Yes. I'll always associate PC gaming with space flight sims. Still the best place to play those kinds of games. Sounds like you had an awesome set of big box titles. Sorry to hear about them getting tossed out like that. Yikes. You know, Desm, the games you listed, I think all of those games are actually really attainable. Even the Star Wars games. Let's take a quick look, because I can't help it. We're going to head over to eBay. What did you say? Rebel Assault, X-Wing, and TIE Fighter. Okay. Rebel Assault, big box. Big box. Big brain. Waiting for it to load. Hit search. All right. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. The original Rebel Assault. Big box PC, 1993, CD-ROM, $14. Excuse me, $14.95. $15 shipped to your house. Not bad, my man. Not bad at all. And then $11.97 for Rebel Assault 2, PC big box. Looks pretty good. That actually really does look good. So that's one. I'll leave you to do the research on the rest. You know what? I hope you get those games. Get them while they're hot, my man, because we're only getting older. Somebody left a comment on with a German name that I'm not going to try and pronounce. Left a comment on the Leisure Suit Larry thing saying Johnson was vice president of Richard Nixon and a Whopper is a hamburger. Thanks. Okay. Thumbs up on that one. Mecha Menace writes, oh, we got a big one from Mecha Menace. All right, this is the last comment as well, so big one to close the show. Mecha Menace writes, yeah, I can see how ROM might be a better choice than to make a processor upgrade. Replacing the processor means replacing the board, which can add up, especially since the resale value of AMD stuff is poor. I switched to Intel several years ago, and I don't want to look back. My computer has yet to let me down. I was running 8 gigs just like you. Quick break. Yeah, you know, one of the problems with AMD versus Intel is I'm noticing that AMD doesn't have much socket compatibility. Like, I can't... Intel, I mean, you're right. If you want to upgrade the processor, you're going to have to get a new board. But there's some sort of play to that. Like, Intel, one socket on a board could, you know, be compatible with at least a few different processors. So depending on what you picked out, maybe you saved up a few more cash, maybe you can trade up. But it's not just the board. You lose the board, you lose, you got to replace the processor, and of course the operating system, because Windows, as soon as you boot it back up again, it's going to realize there's a different CPU and a different motherboard, and it's going to knock out your what do you want? It's going to knock out your implementation of Windows. So you got to be ready to reinstall everything. So, you know. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but I would definitely make sure I've at least tried putting $20 into the gig, into the RAM, just to see how that goes. Let's get on with the comment. He says, I like the mashup of Beats and Kennedy. I always wondered who wrote those speeches. They're still inspiring. I don't think I've ever seen or heard a bad mashup in those movies and music. Since you obviously enjoy that track, I think you would enjoy the following music videos, which mash up Walt Disney's early space documentaries, starting with my favorite, Man on the Moon, Mars and Beyond, and Blast Off. Not my favorite, but hey, it's part of the set. All right, for those of you guys who don't know what he's talking about, check out the comments from last week's episode, and he's got links up there you can check out. I'll watch them after we're done recording because I need to get this finished. That's cool, man, especially from somebody who I know cares about music like yourself. I appreciate anything you're willing to send my way, so I'm going to go check those out. The game at the tip of your tongue is In the Hunt by Irem. Yes, In the Hunt, that was it. The team who worked on it later went on to develop the Metal Slug games. So, listeners, Imagine a vibrant, detailed world filled with sprites of all sizes, with super articulate animations. The water ripples and bubbles, waves crash on the surface, windows and facades of the buildings shatter and their debris puncture the surface of the water. Crammed in a closet, deprived of sleep for days, and surviving on coffee that you think of when you think 90s Japanese video games. Oh man, the way he describes it. Yeah, sounds great. We had the Atari discussion before, so this may be a refresher, but I'll cram in a short list of recommendations. You probably have all of these since you have a drawer full of carts. These are the games I own and have played, so there's no Frankenstein's monster. Hero or Mr. Deuce Castle, which look cool. In some particular order: Centipede, Frogger, Moon Patrol, Defender, Space Cavern, Warp Lock, Vanguard, Super Breakout, Atlantis, Demon Attack, Mountain King, Reactor, Skateboardin', Zaxxon, which is nothing like the arcade game, but it's still fun if you don't care about it being the same, and Montezuma's Revenge. I assumed you meant the 2600. Some versions of these games look and sound better on the 5200, though some, like Vanguard, control worse if you don't have a controller adapter. Alright, let's take a quick break so we can take a look at these lists. Most of these games I have. Moon Patrol in particular is a favorite of mine. I don't think I have Space Cavern, but it's been on my list to get for quite a while. Super Breakout I definitely don't have. That's a paddle game. I don't have a paddle. Mountain King is really cool. I've got that. Skateboarding is like one of the last games I got for the Atari. That's a fun game. Yeah, that's a really good list. I do not recommend adventure at all. Games like Montezuma or Pitfall 2 do the adventure thing way better, which is obvious since they were released later. Also, adventure is overpriced due to the tie-in with this generation's Roger Rabbit movie, which came out last year. Yeah, you know what else is overpriced? Hero. Everybody who talks about Atari seems to bring up Hero at some point. That's like $50-$60, something like that. No thanks. It's still an Atari game. Awesome, man. Thanks for the recommendations. And with that, boys and girls, you know what time it is. It's time for me to send you back to reality, to work, to school, whatever it is you're doing. And if you're on your way to work or school right now, I know a lot of people like to listen to the car. You keep that car pointed right towards work or school. Make sure you make it there and stick it out, because the only way to get through it with any sort of satisfaction is right through. And let me tell you, I'm rooting for you. Make the best of it. I'll see you next Monday.